For only £24, I took a gamble on an Arctic Freezer 3 360 AIO, and it surpassed my expectations. This video is my ownership review and installation experience, and I hope that you will find it highly useful, especially if you have a Fractal North design and would like to purchase that AIO. So let's go around and look at it in its full glory. And I will probably start off by giving you a quick overview. It's silent. It's really silent. Like, actually not silent, I would say quiet. So for me, there's kind of 4 scales to sound. The first one is silent, and that means that you don't hear the product at all. That's probably like an M1 or M2 MacBook Pro, or even your iPhone, like you don't hear it at all. And then there's quiet, which is products that you only hear if the windows in the house are closed and you stand still and you really try to listen out for it. And then there is noisy, which is like an air fryer. If you ever owned an air fryer, or even if you have a normal hob with an extractor fan, if you put the extractor fan on, it's noisy, you will hear it. And then the final category is private jet. So that is more like PlayStation 4 or an Intel MacBook Pro that you're gaming on. Those 2 devices are super noisy, but this one here has made my computer quiet. And the best way for me to describe that is that the idle is pretty much equivalent to, and the best way for me to describe it is that when I play Cyberpunk 2023 on my TV in 4K, it's as quiet as it is at idle. I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference whether I am playing Cyberpunk or whether I'm just idling. That's how well it performs. And it can slightly vary by game, because some games are poorly optimized. For example, A Plague's Tale Innocence, that game's run my GPU at 100%. So with that one, I can notice that the computer is running a game. But for some other titles like Flight Simulator, my computer is as quiet as my Xbox Series X, which is a major reference for me when it comes to sound. So it performs really well in gaming, and I've been extremely lucky because when it comes to AIOs, your performance may vary. Someone might buy this particular AIO and say that the pump is noisy, and others might say that the experience is absolutely perfect. And that's because of the complexity of these products, because you have the fans up front, and then you have a pump, and then you have a radiator as well. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, which is very different to having an air cooler where there's just a fan basically, and it performs consistently, and there's only one way to install it. But with AIOs, you can install them facing up, facing that way, facing downwards. You can have the plumbing facing up or facing down. So that can affect performance. And actually for me, I did purchase 2-3 other AIOs previously. I think that was a Fractal Celsius or something, 360, and an Arctic Freezer 2, 280 AIO, but I returned them both because they were noisy. Meanwhile, other people have had fantastic experience with them. So it can vary. My previous cooler was a AK620, a Deepcool one. Fantastic, brilliant, can't really fault it. And my CPU is a Ryzen 7 5800 3D. And a lot of people know that that CPU runs cool. It's beautiful. Even when you game, it's usually well below 60 degrees Celsius. And then if you compare it to something like a 780 X3D, that one runs about 10 degrees Celsius hotter, both at idle and when you're gaming. So I didn't really need an AIO to replace my air cooler, but I came across this one and it's been really fantastic, and it has been worth it in order to make the computer quieter. really. Like that was the goal. Like it didn't need it for cooling, but it's quieter now. And when I play Flight Simulator, which is a game where there's not a lot of noise going on like in the game, so then I play it in the evening to unwind, and that's when it makes a difference to have a quiet PC, because then I can just zone and listen to the jets in the game, which is a bit of a paradox. Or sometimes even like dial down the volume on the TV and I just vibe and zone. And likewise, I have a few other relaxing games that I just play and listen to, and I have like a speaker system here, like with rear speakers and everything. So I don't wear headphones, but if you wear headphones, then noise might not be a factor for you. But for me, it is. Like I've had this quest of trying to make this computer as quiet as the Series X, and I'm thinking that I'm pretty close to it. But overall, I'm extremely pleased with it and I highly recommend it. For the installation bit, I recommend doing some planning, and that includes watching people who've installed this cooler in a PC case, or ideally the one that you own. But even if it's not the same as the one that you own, it's still worth watching it. So as you know, with AIO placements, there's a couple of different ones depending on your case. You can mount it up top or on the front, and with some cases you can even mount it down there. In the Fractal North case, you can only fit a 280 up there, not a 380, no, 360, sorry, I'm burping. If you want a 360 fitted, it needs to be at the front, or alternatively a 280 as well. The Arctic Freezer 3, it's amazing. It comes in multiple sizes, 240, 360, 280, and 420. And the price difference between them is not really that big. It ranges from like 60 to 72 pounds. So it's not really a matter of cost. It's more a matter of which one that you want to buy for your specific case. 280 is great because if it's RGB, then you obviously benefit from RGB at the top. And 280 also fits in a lot of mini ITX or SFF cases. Meanwhile, with a 360, it doesn't fit up here in all ATX cases, and also in some SSF cases, it doesn't fit at all. For me, I have the 360 fitted at the front because that's the only place to put it. And you can see here that there's not a lot of space for my GPU. So this is an RTX 4070 Ti Super by MSI, and it's not the longest card ever. It is long, but not crazy long. So you can see that there's probably the clearance for a finger there. So bear that in mind and make sure that your GPU isn't too long. Or if you even plan to upgrade your GPU, make sure that you are aware that your upgraded GPU might not fit. For example, if I purchased a 7900 XTX or a 4080 or 4090, those would unlikely fit with this radiator there. So bear that in mind. Another issue that I encountered is that this hose here is rubbing against this fan. So this fan doesn't spin, and I've actually unplugged it. So I only keep it there for RGB, and that's something that I didn't expect. I've seen other people mount have the hose and everything coming out from underneath here, but then there could be an issue with fitting the hose like down there or between the case and the glass. I could turn things around, but it's a bit of a hassle, and I don't want to take everything apart again, because I literally had to take out like everything, like the my old cooler, the GPU, and yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. But do keep that in mind, because that might cause you a bit of a problem if you really need that top fan to help extract air. The other option is to get a 240 one, but with a 240, it could hit against some of the heat sinks there on the motherboard. Plus also a 240, the performance can be a bit of hit and miss. Like they can work great if you have a PC that's for like medium range, I would say around like 4060 to 4070 type PC maximum. But if you get something more powerful, powerful GPU or more powerful CPU to match, then 240 can be a little bit inadequate. Obviously, you can run it at fan speed at like 80% or 100%, but then your PC will be quite noisy. So my philosophy is to go for the biggest possible AIO that fits in your case. If you have like a 7400 X3D or like a 4080, 4090 type computer, I might even just get a larger case and get the 420. Again, it all depends on how sensitive you are to noise, because even this 360 can cool most CPUs out there without any issues at all. And again, it's about your tolerance really. And with this, I think this can only face that way. With some other coolers, you can almost choose where the pipes come out, whether it's that way, or up there. But with this specific AIO, there is only one orientation. Because if it was another orientation, then maybe these cables could have run slightly differently. But this is something to bear in mind. And if we go to the front, I can just pull this here and we can see the 3 fans in all their glory. And the cable comes out at the top. So that is something to bear in mind if you then decide to flip this away and have the hoses pointing downwards. It means that the cable that, the cables that will then go to your CPU header, optional CPU header and systems one might not actually reach, and you might need an extension. And that brings us to the headers. There's 2 different options for connecting the AIO to your computer. So it comes with there's an option of 1 cable that says PWM, and that can be plugged in straight into your CPU fan header. You can see mine up there. And then there is the other option, which is where you get 3 different connectors. So one would go to the CPU header, and that will basically be, I think, for the fans. And then there will be CPU optional, which is for the pump. And then there will be another one that can either go to system fan 2, or in this case, I also have system fan 1 up there, and also system fan 3. So I highly recommend that you, before you order the AIO, is to check your motherboard and read the manual and see what types of connectors you have. So if you just use 1 cable for the PWM, then there's really not a lot of things to manage. But if you use the other option with 3 different connections, it gives you a lot more control over the pump, fan, and also radiators. And that's the option that I have gone for. And that ensures that you can fine-tune things for your CPU, for your volume tolerances, and to make sure that none of the components are noisy or underperforming. But these fans up front can also be swapped out. So I've gone for the non-RGB model. Well, I haven't really chosen because I only had 1 option when it came to buying this AIO that was sold for parts, because also I have slats, so having RGB wouldn't really have worked that well. But the good thing to know is that these fans can easily be changed, and I think one day I might even swap them for Noctua fans, just to make it a little bit more quieter, because I feel like the 120 millimeter fans are a little bit noisier than the 140 ones. So I'm probably going to look out for used Noctua fans at some point, or just wait for Arctic Freezer to come out with some new fans that are super quiet. But as you know, with me, I'm honest Hans, and it's all about nice things for less. So I like to save money where I possibly can. And for example, if you're desperate for RGB and you want it, you can just add some RGB fans up there that I already had on my Deepcool cooler. So don't feel like just because you've bought a 361 that goes at the front doesn't mean that you cannot have RGB up there. So don't just buy the 420 just to get RGB up there. So why did I buy this used one? Well, there was nothing really wrong with my Deepcool one, but I was a little bit curious about making the computer quieter. And this one was listed as sold for parts. And I was thinking, Arctic Freezer have really good warranty. So if there was something wrong with that cooler, the person would just have returned it because it's really existed for less than, I think, 6 or 8 months or something, probably like less than a year. And therefore my hypothesis was the person bought it, they installed it, it just quite didn't fit, and because there was signs of use, they couldn't send it back. So they had to sell it or something. And I purchased it from a charity store on eBay, and it was listed as sold for parts. It looked in great condition, so I could tell that it's probably less than a few days old or something. And they also had a very good returns policy as well. So I knew that if I install it and it doesn't fit, I can send it back for £24. That's less than a meal out at a restaurant, and I couldn't pass on the opportunity to explore whether or not it would work. So there it is, amazing bargain. There's a cliche which is called real men don't read manuals, but I highly recommend to read a manual before ordering this cooler. I would even go as far as just taking the PC apart, because when you install an air cooler or AIO, especially if it has RGB, cable management is super important. So I would plan the cable management a few days before. So to understand how I've connected mine is that I have this hub connected to the CPU header, and then the CPU connector from the AIO goes into this together with my top and exhaust fan, so these blow air outwards. And then I have the pump connected to CPU optional, so that's the bottom one. And then I have the other VRAM connector, or whatever it's called, connected to system 1. And the reason why you want to do your cable management planning is because once you've put everything together, if the cables are running in the wrong section or whatever, you might need to take things apart and do it all over again, and you'll get quite frustrated. So do get quite familiar with your PC and everything else to ensure that you won't have to do any cable management once you've installed it all and you're happy. My only issue during installation was securing the cooler to the CPU. That required a little bit of effort because there's 2 screws, but the plate itself is a bit bent or spring loaded. So it took actually a couple of tries. I think it took me around 10 minutes to finally secure it, because in some situations I secured the right side but then not the left side, and I didn't want to press the non-secured side down too hard and damage my motherboard or CPU. So that took me roughly 10 minutes, and I was almost concerned that maybe the part was broken, but eventually I managed to get it done. And I could also see online that other people had an issue with that as well. So that was my only problem. If you're curious, here are my settings in BIOS. Because my 5800 X3D runs quite cool, I can keep fan speeds at around 24%, 25%, and that will be sufficiently fast enough to keep it cool and quiet. Because when I use my air cooler, the fan speed was set at around 30% until the CPU reaches like 50 degrees. And that just helped keep everything quite cool and quiet. These settings might be slightly different if you have a more powerful CPU, and you might need to play with the settings a little bit. Some people recommend to run the pump at 100%. I'm running it at less than that because it's coping quite well. But what you shouldn't do is to, I think, have the pump set at auto or something where it scales up and down, because I believe that can wear it out if it constantly has to spool up and down, and it's better to just keep it at a fixed rate. And that is exactly what I've done. Currently in my lounge, it's summer, it's 24 degrees, and a few weeks ago it was even 26 or 27, and that is quite representative of a bedroom, because I know a lot of people keep their computer in a bedroom or in an office. They can be quite small. I keep mine downstairs in a big lounge, and during winter it gets a lot cooler here, like 20 degrees or 21. So therefore I believe that my performance is representative for a lot of people, and it runs quiet. I'm honestly so lucky that my specific example has been trouble-free. I've had it for roughly a month now and zero regrets, and I don't even want to take it out or try any other AIO because I'm a little bit nervous that if I take it out and then install it back in, it's gonna get noisy or something. It's one of those cases, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and I'm really keen now to just leave everything as it is. But in the end, I do look forward to maybe buying Noctua fans if it is worthwhile, and see how they perform, whether they make the computer a little bit more silent. But as it is, I'm so pleased that it's close to the silence of an Xbox Series X, but with higher visuals in 4K and more capabilities. Thanks for watching, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments if you run into any troubles or if I have forgotten anything. Bye.